or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we are up on these days as we are ringing in the new year. Happy 2023 for all of those of you, well, still sticking around with us or choosing to be involved. A decent New Year's resolution, I would suppose, here to be more informed about things going on, affecting us, and definitely needing to be discussed here in the borderland. And that is definitely one of ours, to keep doing what we have been doing. So it's kind of a resolution to just keep being awesome. No, I'm not trying to be that conceited, but I'm definitely going to keep doubling down on the things that I think that we need to do and that we're maybe the best at, hopefully, of talking about the things that affect us here in the borderland and having that discussion. Really, that's the most important part, because you can get your news sources from a variety of different places, but being able to actually talk about them and what the impacts are, how we feel about them, and what it means for us here, I'd be hard-pressed to find that much elsewhere, and sorely something needed, particularly as we got a lot going on today. I mean, yeah, I've talked a lot about the fact that the end of the year is supposedly usually a dead, quiet time, not a lot going on, a lot of like, I got to build, bulk up on those, retrospectives and the kind of things. Nope, not having to do that this year, because it's been pretty fast and furious locally, statewide, nationally, and issues that certainly affect us here straight through. Like the holidays went by like just in a snap here, and we're right back to it here as well. So I have a Flaco Jimenez saying Happy New Year, everyone, to you as well. Amber Banda doing a rock on there, and Austin Redfern, Happy New Year to you as well, bro, as we got definitely a lot to talk about. So breaking down a few of those here. A major jailbreak in Mexico, and Ciudad Juarez specifically, leaving dozens dead or escaped, including a major gang leader. So that's one that's right across there. And I got some reporting coming on from that, and particularly what CBP's response is, that I feel is very important, as well as a lot more going on with El Paso City Council, the major. And I'm fairly willing to say, usually you have to say, well, if you have to call it major, is it really? But yeah, I feel like it's warranted in this case, as it has more or less dominated today's city council meeting on what the fate is of El Paso's downtown arena. Multi-purpose, let me pull up the actual item here so I don't get in trouble for it. What is that? Yeah, the MPC, Multi-Purpose Performing Arts and Entertainment Center. Yeah, more or less. I think that's the most appropriate name for it here. Yeah, we're talking about the MPC feasibility study and things like that. So we got some interesting numbers, even as by last check, and according to our news partners over at KFOX 14, currently City Council in an executive session to decide what happens next. Maybe. We'll see. There's still a whole lot of moving parts here, but we do have some new numbers from the presentations today that we certainly can talk about what the cost could be for the options to be considered, even if there is still a decision on if it'll move forward at all. And of course, also the historic votes. The historic votes going on in the national legislature, even as we are on the cusp of the Texas legislative session. We'll keep focusing on that. It's hard-pressed to not talk about or even ignore at all what's going on in the national legislature with the historic multiple votes being forced. I mean, not that it's completely unprecedented, but you definitely outside of living memory, unless you got someone in their 100 and teens that remembers the last time that now 3 votes have been forced when it comes to selecting the new Speaker of the House, and specifically the Texas representatives that are getting in that kerfuffle. As we also have Chris Martin joining us with a good afternoon to you as well, and Ion Gribb saying, I'm going to call it maybe a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, maybe a little bit of pessimism here. It's going to be a year, ... to remember. I mean, yes, the 2022 was definitely one of the years of my life. I can certainly say that, but also saying Happy New Year, everyone. I do appreciate the sentiment. So hope you all made it through as well. Eric von Holstein-Rathlow going on there. I think that's a ball drop emoji, or it doesn't really show up that well on our screen. But if you want to chime in yourself here, of course, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, the places that we still got up for you for the time being and for the foreseeable future anyway. Over on those platforms where people are chiming in, you can certainly do that. Drop those likes and reacts that we also appreciate, including Chris Martin, Ion Grimm, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, and Monica Cervantes. Just helps with all those algorithmic things as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in the borderland Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. as we do. Okay, yeah, we've had the whole holiday weeks going on, but we're back on track and going to be bringing you live shows throughout the regular schedule for when's the next holiday? Okay, until then, I'm definitely going to be doing that and being around here. So let's dive straight into it. One of the major stories going on right now from our news partners there at KFOX 14, gang leader freed in Ciudad Juarez prison attack that killed 17. If you're wondering about some more of the smoke that was coming out of Ciudad Juarez over the weekend, yeah, there was specifically a attack by, among other things, improvised armored vehicles, or by some of the videos that I saw, not so improvised, on the Cerezo Número 3, the state prison in Ciudad Juarez, that, if I'm not mistaken, has certainly been one of the more problematic ones. I mean, there's not exactly a good prison or prison issues to be having, so don't mean to say that the rest are totally fine, but remember these ones being the source of riots and other things, and now the death toll at least being raised now to 17 after, quote, a brazen operation that appeared designed to free the leader of a local gang, with at least 25 escaping the attack. There has been some estimates that are changing there, and at least 10 of the dead were actually prison guards attacked by gunmen, arrived early Sunday in armored vehicles, so New Year's Day attack, and fired on the entrance and inside dormitories. And so basically, specifically the Mexicles gang, Mexicles. No, it's not a fun new popsicle, because they're specifically associated with the Cabroca cartel, and the leader that was in prison there is among the fugitives. Now, of course, given the situation that we have been seeing with immigration and border security in our region, one of the most important things that I feel like to mention here has been what CBP has said so far, saying over the weekend, specifically, quote, CBP was notified Sunday and has been in contact with Mexican authorities. CBP personnel are aware and remain vigilant. And yeah, it was this same president just back in August, so ever so recently, that actually spread to the streets of Juarez, and violence that left 11 people dead, including, if I am not mistaken, actually ending up shooting a radio station that was out doing promotion on site there in Juarez. So that one hit close to home personally. And everyone hosting Rathlow kind of asking the question that CBP was more or less responding to. They're saying how many of those escaped convicts will cross over our border. I remember when outlaws would cross south to hide out. It's always been kind of the factor here. I mean, the way I have thought about it is that anytime there's laxity or permissibility, for lack of a better term, and like one side not caring what the other is doing, I mean, there's a reason that there are bars on the windows, and it's almost an architectural style in El Paso. Like, I remember my grandmother's house, which is no longer in our family, having bars on the window, because back when that was being primarily inhabited, petty crime, robberies, burglaries, breaking in, stealing stuff, and then people absconding back across the border was definitely a thing. But it's so much prevalent in so many places, particularly in older architecture, that it's often been taken as that's just the style here in El Paso. So completely new buildings being built with those kind of integrated bars over the windows. So yeah, it definitely has been a back and forth kind of thing, but I mean, that is one of the questions. And RJ saying, and again, kind of put it another way, saying Cerezo is a total hellhole and corrupt as long as I can remember escaping to America. I mean, that is the speculation, and why, again, that CBP statement on it, at least being aware of it, probably very important. We're definitely going to be talking about and seeing what statements come out from CBP as we get closer to, well, in the coming days, really, because they are decent about putting out what is actually, well, the kind of apprehensions that come out here. So I'll be looking forward to seeing any further statements and anything related to this there. And I'm saying, yes, unfortunately, 2 radio station employees there in Juarez were killed in the circumstances around the last riots that happened. So one of those Happy New Year kind of situations going on and there, but there's, of course, a lot more going on administratively, or more or less, let's just call it lawmaker and elected official based here in the U.S. Coming up after this next break, due for that first one of this hour right now, going to talk about the extended discussions. More than 80 people signed up for the public comment in El Paso City Council today to talk about the Downtown Arena Multipurpose Performing Arts and Entertainment Center, if I'm getting my acronym right. MPC is the short version of the way they keep putting it. And what that vote has the potential to be, of course, there are some circumstances coming out of the recent elections and the runoffs finally being settled that point to maybe some different implications on what could be happening with, you see an agenda item on there about abandoning the arena. There are definitely some, even as of last check, City Council right now was in executive session. If you've got any updates from our news partners there. But definitely some new numbers to talk about today as part of the other parts of the presentation on, well, what would it actually cost to build any format of a downtown arena, multipurpose performing art, whatever have you, the place where you can do things downtown that isn't one that we already have. Is that simple enough for you? In any case, what those numbers are, what they show, and also then a little bit further on, how Texas representatives throwing more than a little bit of a monkey wrench into the vote for the new Speaker of the House in the national legislature. So, like I said, a lot going on to start 2023, so we'll dive back into it, taking that first break right now. So coming back after this break, more comments on the line, phone lines a little bit later as we do, but you keep those comments going on over on the social media as we often keep those up. So stay tuned, more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An earlier crash blocking a couple of lanes. I-10 westbound and McRae Boulevard exit is cleared. All lanes are back open. There's still a little bit of a backup. I-10 eastbound at Geronimo, a tow truck is blocking the right lane. It's a 10-minute backup on Zaragoza northbound between the Loop and Montana. Global Reach, 20-minute delays from the spur down to Montana. And an injury accident, Wrestler northbound at Northern Pass. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Stand Up to Cancer.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer can sound a lot like,
Building looks mediocre.
Designs need a do-over.
or even,
Install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk, from the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building. Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
Attend the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, January 7th and 8th at Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Avenue, Las Cruces, New Mexico. See dealers selling the finest in modern guns, antique guns, custom knives, scopes, a huge selection of ammo, reloading supplies, and much more. Buy, sell, and trade at the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, January 7th and 8th at Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Avenue, Las Cruces. Get $2 off admission. Go to azgunradio.com. Parking is free.
Hey Texas! This time of year is all about coming together and enjoying time-honored holiday traditions or starting your own. This winter, make sure your fellow Texans, especially those with a serious mental health condition, know how to stay informed and protected from increased COVID-19 risks associated with serious mental illness. Getting vaccinated is pro-Texan protection against COVID-19. Visit www.vaccines.gov/search to find a vaccine provider near you.
Make a New Year's resolution that's easy to keep. Help protect your identity and finances with LifeLock Identity Theft Protection. LifeLock detects identity threats you may miss on your own. And if you become a victim, LifeLock will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But LifeLock by Norton makes it easy to help protect yourself. Join now and save up to 25% off your first year. Go to lifelock.com. Use promo code NEWS.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, where the majority of the comments come in, and you can certainly add your 2 cents throughout the program. Might put some of the more relevant and or interesting one up on screen there as well, and read them out. So a lot of people chiming in there, including Lou Pinato, Eric McNabb, RJ, Eric von Holstein Rathlow, Bernadette Bandicle. Okay, RJ over on the YouTube, to make that clear. Amber Banda, Ion Grimm, John Brazelton, Chris Martin, Austin Redfern, Flaco Jimenez, dropping those likes and reacts, including Bernadette Bandicle, Jerry Hart, Chris Martin, Ion Grimm, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, and Monica Cervantes. Do appreciate them all in order here. And at least one conversation about the national legislature being mentioned there, including Eric von Holstein Rathlow saying, I nominate Matt Gaetz for speaker. Honestly, the whole milieu right now, I mean, spoiler alerts, they've been forcing multiple votes, but we'll get into that and now talk a little bit further about particularly how okay, I'm not going to try and stretch it by saying local, but they're technically only a district away, if you want to be specific with it, are involved in this fight and even getting some of the votes. And, we'll get into that here. But I want to talk definitely a little bit more locally about what is going on in El Paso City Council when it comes to the much debated, vaunted, insert your own adjective here, for the downtown arena. Also, I guess maybe more commonly known, I would say downtown arena, but also multi-purpose performing arts and entertainment center would be a decent way to put it here. As of last check, my understanding is that the 83 people that signed up for public comment on this issue today finally managed to make their way through that list. This meeting on that point here has been going on for most of the day, at least 6 hours, according to some of the posting going on from our news partners there. And so even though it's my understanding that they are still in executive session, okay, here's the thing about city council when it comes to that. Sure, they have to hear some of the major points and discussion going on in public, but then once they get past the kind of establishment of the item, bringing up off the agenda, etc., they then retire to executive session, which is a closed door room. I mean, I think they got windows in there, but they don't look into the public area. And they got bathrooms and, to my understanding, sometimes catering back there. So no telling how long it's going to be back there, as it's, I mean, technically allowable under the Texas Government Code of consultation with attorneys. And so for business purposes, not wanting to, lose advantage in negotiations, it serves a purpose, but the amount of time that they're often back there and outside of their discussion in the public view is something that I find I dislike. Just going to flat out say that, because transparency and all those kind of good things. So no telling how long they're going to be back there. But even if there have been questions about, I mean, anytime you see an item on the agenda about abandoning the arena, as was, I do believe, item 13 today, interesting one, but as I believe came before that, if I'm not mistaken, on the order of events as it came to item 14 actually was the results of a new study, the MPC feasibility and programming study. And going into the, they say, among other things, that 89.1% approve the MPC project with building restoration that reimagines and use of existing buildings, and that they are now kind of, I don't know if there was ever actually a true number put there. I think at the very least being bigger than the Don Haskins Center was a important way to kind of frame this. That was my understanding and at least hope when this was initially even put forth here. But so out of the presentation, there are 3 kind of reimaginings or maybe actual implementations of this project that have been put forth here. I guess so. There's 1 and then 2 that is kind of a part A and part B. So 3 total, but 1 is an arena with a 12,000 seat capacity is the way that they are putting forth it there. And then there are the flexible hybrid venue A and flexible hybrid venue B, with essentially a combination of indoor and outdoor seating. And so the arena would have about 12,000 seat capacity. And according to the city of El Paso's number here, that project cost would be about $386 million. Now, you may recall that the 2012 quality of life bond projects that listed this part of it had about $180 million actually listed for it. So we'd be looking at not quite, or actually over double that, if I'm doing my math right here, and taking about a 342,000 square feet. And that's more or less just the facility itself here. If you actually go over to elpasotexas.gov and do the clicking through all the things here, I'm not fully expecting you to, but if you got a spare minute, the presentation does have some decent explanation and graphics of what these would actually look like so you can get a better visualization. I mean, it all gets kind of dry and rote talking about numbers and square feet, but there are some decent graphical representations. Tell you what, I think we'll post up the link over on our social media so that you can try and see the presentation for yourself if we can get it to work correctly. In any case, yeah, the $386 million is what is being put forth with that. Then flexible hybrid venue A, which would have about 50-50 indoor-outdoor seating. And so about an 8,000 seat capacity, either way you break it down. That would cost about $113 million, about 100,000 just over square feet. And then the hybrid venue B with primarily indoor seating, about 6,500 indoor, 1,500 outdoor. So still for that kind of sum total of 8,000 square feet, that would be about $183 million and about 175,000 square feet. So one option that would, I guess, technically fit into the well, okay, that's the project costs, and honestly, let me give you the full number here. There also is some capital reserve that is being mentioned for each of these project breakdowns, and also historic renovation costs that across the board are being listed at $30 million, because as part of the study and the numbers and the way they put it forth of the where the feasibility was being done, that's roughly, it's called $800,000 that was spent on that, showing that there's more support for it. That's 80% number. That I have some questions about how they actually came up with that one beyond the way they've kind of parsed the numbers together. But point is that actually adaptive reuse, as opposed to just demolishing of the buildings and the character of the area, was purported to be, at the very least in one of the further along down in the document, they show the way that they have essentially the community feedback. And one of the interesting ones is, how important is the preservation of existing buildings in the Union Plaza area to you? And on it's kind of one of those scale of 0 to 5 things, and being from 0 being not important to 5 being very important, 40% of respondents. So this was about 1,500 people were part of this survey, and approximately 580, let's just call it, responded that this is very important, with another about 400 responding either important or somewhat important on the 3 and 4 parts of that 0 to 5 scale. Anyway, I've been baffling too much with numbers. Point is that this is being put in as a very important part of making this work here. So really the total project costs, the number that I really should have started reading to you here, is that it's going to be in either of these options with an extra $30 million for it. So for an arena, indoor, 12,000 seat capacity, $416 million. For the flexible hybrid venue A would be about $143 million. And flexible hybrid venue B, the one that has more indoor seating than not, about $213 million. So of the 3 options that go through there, 2 of them go well past what the budget was established already, one more than doubling it, and the other one a little bit of an outstripping there, particularly since there have been litigation fees and things of putting up this survey, those kind of things. And one that might fall within it, so particularly the flexible hybrid venue A, the one that has half indoor, half outdoor seating, but notably, and this is why I'm going to post up that link for you all and pull it out, that more or less the same kind of footprint is taken up by the venue and the spaces and the area. In fact, arguably, the way that they have it demonstrated on the City of El Paso, again, this straight from the agenda item as presented to City Council and the assembled public comment section today, that the flexible venue would actually be taking up more, dare I say, actual area out of the whole arena possible footprint. So that's why one thing I want to make sure you see here, RJ asking, indoor/outdoor retractable roof, sombrero amphitheater. No, I don't think they're looking to replace the Abraham Chavez Theater or ape it in any way. It does kind of look like one of those fan-shaped stage areas and then performance areas, but I think that there's more like it could be covered, could be not. There is definitely definitely a lot of flexibility in there, but there are some possibilities. And again, to my understanding from everything we're seeing from those that are live tweeting in the area and in the City Council chambers today, still in executive session as near as I'm aware. So what the actual decision will be on this, I think these are the options that have been presented by city staff and from the study that was done about if it progresses, if it proceeds with the actual project. But if it doesn't, that's a completely different kettle of fish, I gotta say, because that would be, well, not even just back to the drawing board, but chucking the drawing board out. So that's just one of the things going on within El Paso City Council today. I mean, there have been more things, including, of course, the ongoing discussions about, the migrant situation, the extension of the migrant crisis or disaster declaration. So that's just one of the things, but definitely an overarching topic that, like I kind of said at the end of last year, I think we still got a list up there of what some of the top news topics were of 2022 and the city council elections and future. Yeah, here's the future part of that. As we are, the reason this came up, frankly, is the changes on the demographics of who is on city council. Not necessarily their immutable characteristics, but the viewpoints they have when it comes to the arena, the project, and the possibilities of it. So, yeah, I don't think this discussion is by any means decided how it's going to outcome, but we'll have to keep our eye on that. If we got anything coming up during the show, we'll, of course, try to bring you the latest there. But that's doing us for our next break of the hour right now. So coming out of this break, not even just the, of course, local ordinance passers, lawmakers is not the correct term, but elected officials it certainly is. But those lawmakers in Congress, essentially why Congress has now had to recess for the day in order to regroup and come back to see if they can get a Speaker of the House elected, and how they're not exactly local, but they're only a district away if you want to be very, very technical with it. What's going on with that, the vote, and how this is being forced a historic one. So let's go ahead and take that break right now. Again, you are tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone lines open in a bit, end of next segment as we usually do, but otherwise, lots of comments coming in over on the social media. Keep those going, pop them up as good and relevant. In any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. There's a break in the case of a 24-year-old woman who was found stabbed to death in a car in the Kern Place neighborhood of El Paso. Police say the suspect also killed his 79-year-old aunt in northeast El Paso. The stabbing deaths took place over the Christmas weekend. Officers arrested 33-year-old Gabriel Ramirez. Investigators say that Ramirez lived with the aunt that he killed on Christmas Day. Investigators say he was spotted December 26th, washing blood out of a stolen car in Kern Place. He was arrested that day. Police today released details of their investigation. They say he is being held on murder charges. The death toll continues to climb after an attack on a state prison in Ciudad Juarez. Authorities in Mexico say 17 people were killed in a brazen operation that appeared designed to free the leader of a local gang. 25 inmates managed to escape in the attack. Officials say 10 of the dead were prison guards. It's been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound still seeing stop-and-go traffic from George Dieter over to Zaragoza with 5-minute delays due to an earlier accident. 54 Patriot northbound at Montana. A stalled truck with a cargo is blocking the right shoulder. An accident reported eastbound Vista del Sol at Zaragoza. And slow traffic on Global Reach. It's a crawl, 30-minute delay from the spur down to Montana. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Lows tonight dropping down into the mid-30s, so it's going to be another cold one for tonight. A little breezy at times. For tomorrow, we'll start to get a little warmer out of the 50s, likely into the lower 60s for your Thursday afternoon. And then we'll continue that warming trend for your Friday with a high around 66 degrees. A little cooler, though, as we go into the weekend with lower to mid-60s by Saturday and Sunday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by iHeartAdvertising.com.
Is it getting harder to find new customers? As the #1 audio company in America, we can help you grow your business at a fraction of the cost. Get started today by visiting iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
When your back pain is your foot's fault. This is Dean's story.
It was affecting me when I walked, which is a kind of a common activity.
Dean's chronic back pain had become a pain in the you-know-what.
At first, I just sort of ignored it, but eventually everything catches up to you.
Physically and mentally.
Back pain affects your mood. It really does.
But that's not the only connection Dean made.
A friend of mine suggested I go to the Good Feet store. I was a little confused. Why would I need a foot store? My feet are fine.
But he thought, what the heck? He had nothing to lose.
They took impressions of my feet, and with the footprint, they were able to get me a personalized arch support that lifted pressure off my back.
So the source of your back pain was right under your toes.
It's something maybe I should have known, but I found out in the nicest possible way.
See how arch supports work for you with a free fitting. Find your Good Feet store at goodfeet.com.
Airway Boulevard at I-10.
If you've had COVID, you can get it again, and next time it could be worse, especially for those 50 or older or with a chronic condition. An updated vaccine gives you better protection from COVID's worst outcomes. Find COVID vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. We can do this. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Nearly 3,000 teen drivers die in car crashes each year. Tire Rack Street Survival is designed to save lives. The one-day hands-on driving school gives teens experience in car control through exercises that include emergency braking and skid recovery. Find a class near you at TireRack.com/survive. This report is sponsored by Tire Rack.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And there's a lot to talk about here today. Again, comments coming over on the social media. Those dropping those likes and reacts, we do appreciate, including Ida Beza Gardner, Jerry Hart, Chris Martin, Ion Graham, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, Monica Cervantes, Amber Panda, and Bernadette Vanda Cole. Do appreciate it. As we're talking about, of course, what's going on just south of the border there and the continuing situation. And it wasn't just the prison break, by the way. I want to make that actually pretty clear, because there was even more actual shootouts in the streets of Juarez. And the title from El Paso Matters here. Investigators, suspects killed as authorities search for Juarez prison escapees. And so the day after the prison break, investigating officers are killed and no escapees are located. There's also more details about the fact that there were these VIP cells sounding like an evil kind of Goodfellas. Okay, I'm not calling that Goodfellas. The depiction of their time in prison was a good thing either, but they definitely didn't have long guns that were out there as part of it. That's what the situation was in the Juarez prison. Yeah, but RJ commenting on the other kind of major thing that particularly involves Texas representatives, which is why it's of particular interest, and his previous appearance here in town. RJ saying poor McCarthy is going to take his ball and go home here soon if nobody picks him. I'm good with it if there's more of the same uniparty speakers the right keeps giving us. And so referring there to one of the other major things going on today. So actually, spoiler alert, there's not going to be another vote today after now 3 failed votes for the selection of a speaker in the House in the start of this next session of Congress, as the Republicans have had them take the majority now. And there is a House Majority Leader that has already been put forth and selected, and some of the initial agenda items being put forth there. But the actual selection of the Speaker of the House, quite a wrench being in that situation. So, of course, Kevin McCarthy, a representative from the state of California, was out in our area, most recently calling for, among other things, the impeachment of Mayorkas. But such stances he was taking at that point weren't enough to secure him the speakership vote, as there again went to 3 ballots and still no decisions to make. And so unable to get the 218 votes needed to become speaker due to opposition from hardline Republicans. And of course, it's worth noting that there hasn't been a need for another, this series of votes, anything more than one in more than a century. Now, for his part, and in contravention to what RJ is saying there, McCarthy has vowed to continue fighting for the position, while some opponents, including some, again, local-ish deal, I'll go with that, typically only a district away, but they're saying that they're committed to challenge the status quo no matter how many rounds of voting that it takes. And one of the ones that is very much being pointed out as part of this from the Texas Tribune article headline, U.S. Rep. Chip Roy emerges as the key GOP agitator, not the, but one of. He was signed on to at least one of 8 or 9 that signed on to a letter essentially opposing McCarthy's ascension to the Speaker of the House position. And so it was part of the ones that kind of blocking the bid for it, including, I do believe, getting some votes, about 18 to 20 or so. So at least Richard Janasik says, I'm in for Jim Jordan. and don't know if he's anywhere closer to it. I mean, the clear front runner has been McCarthy, but there is there's still a bit of a split going on, so it's enough to keep a firm majority from going on. So the reason I'm calling this local-ish is that Roy is not exactly one that we've talked about or with in previous times, but he's in the Texas 21st congressional district. Think of your map of Texas real quick. Out here in our far west area, we got the Texas 16th congressional district. That is, it's not quite everything east of Loop 375, but that's west of Loop 375, but it's a close enough approximation that it serves the purpose here. And then the Texas 23rd takes over the entire eastern border of El Paso County and then follows along the border covering Big Bend and then ends up as this amoeba-looking thing about to engulf San Antonio. Best way I can describe it. The Texas 21st congressional district is just to the north and west a bit of San Antonio. So strictly speaking, the 21st is one congressional district away, even if it's a decidedly outsized district. In any case, we definitely got Texas representatives, part of the monkey wrench throwing that has been going on with this vote. So as much as there is this whole, what's the best way to describe it, kerfuffle going over who will be the leadership, the tone and tenor of this session is very much in the balance because, among other things, some of what has been suggested by Kevin McCarthy as terms of the rules that he will put forth, because the Speaker of the House is not just a symbolic position, nor just two heartbeats away from the presidency, as the accurate, if morbid, way to put it, third in line to the ascension of there if the others find themselves unable to or incapacitated, et cetera, et cetera. Also sets the rules for it. So I remember when I was back in D.C., that's when John Boehner came in and was changing some of the rules back to being able to smoke in the cloakroom and things like that. It's not just a symbolic and I set the agenda. It's very much even like setting rules for how the House is able to hear things, how the agenda does progress, certainly appointments, those kind of things, but like what gets served in the cafeteria, those kind of things. So it's got a lot of power, and even in setting of the rules, including, and most notably, one of the ones that has been being brought up for this session is how will votes be able to be counted? Because, of course, with, 2020, pandemic, all those kind of things, there was a lot of idea of proxy voting or indicating your vote if not in the chamber, which, strictly speaking, not really a feature outside of other extraordinary, if you weren't there, you weren't voting kind of thing. So the idea of moving back towards that, very much a part of what was being put forth by McCarthy in his bid for taking on the Speaker of the House, but not quite enough. There are a few other things, including setting up of investigations or the ways that there can be, and particularly ways that budget items can be changed to not even just defund departments, but specific position within departments. So this was already being set up to be a very adversarial session, at least some of the rumblings I'm being seen coming out of D.C., at least from the Democrat or at the very least White House concerned things about setting this up to be they're intransigent, they don't want to play ball at all, so why should we? And nothing will get done. That's been a narrative that's been coming forth, and I'm not sure if even if McCarthy was to be successful in his bid eventually, that will change at all. But more than that, I do think that if there is any further upheaval, I mean, this is, again, not entirely unprecedented going to multiple votes for a Speaker of the House, but it's been a long time. And particularly Chip Roy is quoted by Texas Tribune here saying, quote, "In the early days of the House of Representatives, individual members had the power to make a motion. If it's seconded, you can debate it. You can have parliamentary engagement. And today it's a handful of self-selected power brokers who make all of the calls." So some of the things being pushed for here would be a kind of radical in the modern sense from ways it used to be about changing the progression of it. So that's some of what is at stake and how this session could end up working out. Now, I'm saying session here because this is the next session of Congress, but of course, in the background of most, if not all of this, there is, of course, the fact that we have the Texas legislative session coming up because, that's the true mad dash. So we'll still probably keep paying attention to what is coming out of the national legislature. But in the meantime, we got that. It's probably going to take up most of our airwaves here for a while now, how the Texas legislature is progressing, because that's 140 days, period. Starts January 10th, a week away from the start of that one. Maybe I'll get some new music, not campaign music, wouldn't fit that way, but what would Texas legislature music sound like? I'll see if I can find something that fits that. I'm imagining there's going to be some kind of like a rawhide leather whip sound in it somewhere. Maybe, maybe not. I'll see if we can find something good for that one. In any case, that one's going to be a true mad dash of legislation, as this is their only shot. They can't keep coming back and forth and fiddling around like this. So that's one thing. Oh, gosh, that suggestion of purge. No, we're not going to do the purge siren at the start of it here, though. Anyway, we've got to take that next break right now. We'll see if we end up with the Speaker of the House by the time we're on air tomorrow, because they're definitely in recess right now. But in any case, taking that next break right now, and we will go ahead, as we usually do at this point during the program, open up those phone lines. So if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
No crashes on your El Paso freeways right now. We've got an injury accident. El Paso Fires responding to a crash at Pebble Hills eastbound at Tierra Este. Montana Avenue eastbound is slow. Airway out to Yarborough with 7-minute delays. Northbound Zaragoza between the Loop and Edgemere, it's a 5-minute delay. And Global Reach still slow. Southbound from the Spur down to Montana Avenue, it's a 20-minute delay. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International.
Drought, war, and rising food prices have doubled the number of families facing malnutrition. You can help. $50 provides a food kit to feed a family for a month. Just text the word radio to 97646.
The Where Were You in 92 podcast brings you back to the year of big butt anthems, achy breaky hearts, and grunge. Take an audio trip back in time to relive the wildest, most eclectic, and controversial 12 months in music through interviews with critics, industry bigwigs, and the artists themselves.
Take me back to a magical time when music was magic, and I had completely burned that to the ground.
Listen to Where Were You in 92 on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey Texas! This time of year is all about coming together and enjoying time-honored holiday traditions or starting your own. This winter, make sure your fellow Texans, especially those with a serious mental health condition, know how to stay informed and protected from increased COVID-19 risks associated with serious mental illness. Getting vaccinated is pro-Texan protection against COVID-19. Visit www.vaccines.gov/search to find a vaccine provider near you.
Cash Blitz scratch tickets from the Texas Lottery are here. Play for a shot at top prizes from $5,000 to $1 million. Plus, enter to win a VIP iHeart trip and more at texaslottery.com.
I never write reviews, but Navage is so amazing, I had to leave one. Nothing's ever cleared out my sinuses as well. I'm blown away by how Navage works. That's a review from Carrie, and it's one of over 100,000 online testimonials praising Navage. I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I've talked about flushing out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, how Navage's powered suction can help you breathe better, and how your nose is the body's air filter, and Navage will clean it out. But don't take my word for it. What do people like Chad say, who wrote, Navage has helped clear out my nasal passages every single night. My wife says my snoring has gone way down. Snorefest be gone, unquote. Navage is the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million customers to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, Target, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Drought, war, and rising food prices have doubled the number of families facing malnutrition. You can help. $50 provides a food kit to feed a family for a month. Just text the word radio to 97646.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. They're under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Those are the names, more or less. There are other pages you can find us on there, but short answer is whatever works for you, wherever you can find us, comments, add your 2 cents is the right place for you, including, of course, the phone line. So we have that open right now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of stuff to get to here today. Again, 3 major topics that we've been discussing so far, including the still evolving situation in the Cerezo Numero 3 state prison break and investigation, and it's still some violence going on surrounding it. Over in Ciudad Juarez, and of course CBP's response so far, at least their statement on it, as well as what's going on in City Council. To my awareness, haven't seen anything fully updated, even though we're in like hour 7 of at least it being the dominant part of what has been coming up, particularly for our news partners over there at KFOX 14. Giovanni Carrillo, the one in the chamber, as far as I'm aware, actually keeping the updates there and getting some of the public comment that has come out of it. In any case, the fate of the arena still kind of hanging the balance, whether it will move forward or not with this set of votes and et cetera, and kind of discussion going on with City Council today. But then, of course, also what's going on in the national legislature and the, again, unprecedented in living memory. I'm definitely confident in putting it that way. Someone's got a 120-year-old in their life out there that remembers the last time this happened. Would love to talk with them. But in any case, yeah, the whole Republican takeover of Congress, the change in power for this new session, maybe not going as smoothly as, well, I don't know if it was intended or not, but definitely not recently happening that the prospective Speaker of the House was not able to secure that power before ending up going into, well, the session that we're in now. In any case, if you want to get on the line again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Frankie in Mesilla on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
Hot diggity dog. I am beyond giddy. I am beyond delirious delightfulness. There's not enough popcorn in the world to munch on watching this fiasco going on. This is beyond Three Stooges, Gang Can't Shoot Straight, and Keystone Cops. My goodness. So what? This is... They're eating them like self-cannibalization. These conservative kooks out there. I've never seen anything in my 81 years on this planet. My goodness, I've never seen anything like this. Now, I am going to be glued to the radio here, Andrew. I'm telling you, I want to hear Befuddled Ben, Bewildered Barbara, Craven Crevin, Junkyard Jerry, Awful Andrew, and what are they going to say about that? That their gang, their supporters are out there doing this stupid nonsense that I've never seen in my entire life over the last 100 years. And also, by the way, Happy New Year. Thank you for coming back.
Absolutely. We're definitely going to be back here, and Happy New Year to you as well. And I mean, this was pretty well a called shot, to be honest with you. As much as there have been, let's just call it, interesting situations, particularly involving the, well, now outgoing House leadership. I mean, previous Speaker Nancy Pelosi holding that seat off and on in a few different ways. There was always a little bit of maneuvering, but that was all taken care of pretty well before that. Again, it's kind of interesting to me, frankly, that was, as much as it's often put forth that Democrats are unorganized at the national level. I know that's not everyone may agree with that, but that's some of the analysis that I get from people who are more interested in that viewpoint than not. They feel very frustrated with the disorganization and the lack of unity within the national party. I mean, look at what was happening in the Senate with, Sinema and Manchin and those kind of things. But yeah, that this kind of turned into this, honestly, circus is a decent analogy for what we are witnessing at the national level, because them having to not be able to secure the vote and have to go into recess. I mean, we keep getting into more and more. This hasn't really happened before, at the very least in anyone's lifetime. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you something. I mean, I just find this absolutely fascinating. God bless America, because this is how we do stuff. But I got to tell you something. This is just so much fun. This is better than all the greatest movies you could ever think about. All the jokes that you ever heard that you would have laughed your derriere off at. I just think it's absolutely hilarious. And now I got to, this Craven Cruddy guy, he's got to give it up. He is so damaged, so poisonous, that he's just got to get out of the way. And all these other nut jobs, Muggery, Thuggery, and Blowbart, and the rest of the nut jobs, how in the world? And that Santos guy, he was sitting there like a bump on a log. Nobody even said hello to him or Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And that's all I want to say about that.
Fair enough here. Well, thanks for the point in the call. And again, Happy New Year to you as well.
Okay, we'll see you, Andrew. Thanks for coming back.
No, absolutely. You can keep me away from here, except for when I'm told that we have to be on holiday. Anyway, appreciate it.
I hope not. You're the man. You're the man. You got to come back all the time.
We'll be here definitely all this week and the future one. So again, appreciate it. You have a good one.
All right, bye.
All right. And with that, we're pretty close to taking that next break right now. Again, if you want to get on the line, the number is some of these comments that I don't think I can repeat here. There's a reason you got to look at the social media for yourself here. But if you want to call in, again, that number, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Got to take that break. Back after this break, we are going to be talking further about this and, of course, keeping those phone lines open. So, taking that top of the hour news break and all that comes with it. In any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Freeways are staying crash-free so far this afternoon. We got an injury accident, though. Pebble Hills eastbound at Tierra Este. An accident reported eastbound Vista del Sol at Zaragoza. It's stop and go in Artcraft in both directions between West Side and the I-10 with 15-minute delays. And North Zaragoza northbound between the Loop and Edgemere, that's a 7-minute backup. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Attend the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, January 7th and 8th at Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Avenue, Las Cruces, New Mexico. See dealers selling the finest in modern guns, antique guns, custom knives, scopes, a huge selection of ammo, reloading supplies, and much more. Buy, sell, and trade at the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, January 7th and 8th at Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Avenue, Las Cruces. Get $2 off admission. Go to azgunradio.com. Parking is free.
Coverage you can count on, I take dearly, because that is me doing my job to make sure that everyone out there is being safe.
Watch Sandra Diaz on KFOX 14 News at 9. Count on KFOX 14 to find the truth behind the story. It's Stephanie Seifert is your dedicated investigative reporter. KFOX 14 investigates on KFOX 14 News at 9. Coverage you can count on.
Stay informed at kcsmradio.com.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. After 3 rounds of voting, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is failing to secure the speakership as the House adjourned until Wednesday. McCarthy was unable to get the 218 votes needed to become Speaker due to opposition from hardline Republicans. The House hasn't needed more than 1 vote to elect a Speaker in a century. The Buffalo Bills say DeMar Hamlin spent last night in the ICU and remains there today in critical condition at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center. The team said they're thankful grateful for the outpouring of support they've received thus far. Pennsylvania police are talking about the arrest of Brian Kohberger, the man accused of butchering 4 University of Idaho students. Police Colonel Robert Evanchik said he was shocked to learn Kohberger was part of his community.
I did not imagine the investigation would lead to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
His comments come after Kohberger agreed to be extradited from his Pennsylvania home back to Idaho to face his murder charges. Pennsylvania State Police said officers jumped into action after the FBI asked for surveillance assistance involving Kohberger. U.S. Soccer is investigating allegations against the head coach of the national men's team. Lisa Taylor reports.
The Federation says it learned about allegations against Greg Berhalter on December 11th and hired an independent investigator. In a statement, Berhalter detailed a violent incident that involved his now wife back in 1991 that he believed an individual tried to use to get U.S. Soccer to end its relationship with him. U.S. Soccer said through the process it learned about potential inappropriate behavior towards multiple members of our staff and expanded the investigation. U.S. Soccer said it's spoken with Berhalter and his wife about the incident and will share the results of the investigation once it's complete.
At the closing bell, the Dow lost 11 points to 33,136. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Yet another strain of COVID is taking hold across the U.S. Sarah Lee Kessler has more.
A new Omicron variant now represents the primary COVID strain seen nationwide. It's called XBB 1.5. According to the CDC, it accounts for 41% of America's new COVID cases. Medical experts say they're concerned that it could cause more breakthrough cases and reinfections.
2 Washington men have been arrested in connection with attacks on 4 power substations over the Christmas holiday. 32-year-old Matthew Greenwood and 40-year-old Jeremy Crahan were arrested Saturday. Court documents show the men were identified through an analysis of phone records. At one substation, a photo of a truck appeared to be connected with the attack, and one of the men had a similar truck. The substation attack caused $3 million in damage and left thousands without power over the Christmas holiday. Young musicians from the New York area are up for a Grammy. Lisa G. has the details.
The New York Youth Symphony, with some members still in middle school, was nominated for Best Orchestral Performance for the album they recorded during the pandemic. The orchestra is up against some heavy hitters, including an album conducted by John Williams and an album by the Los Angeles Philharmonic. Iris Sung, the orchestra's 17-year-old concert master, tells the New York Times that she was in class at Tenafly High School in New Jersey when she heard the news, saying the nomination feels very special.
A man dubbed the Santa Slayer is facing charges after being arrested in Virginia. Authorities say the man attacked an inflatable decoration portraying St. Nick in Stafford Lakes Village on New Year's Day. Deputies say they arrived at the scene to find the suspect wearing a red jersey, underwear, and one shoe. He was taken into custody for public intoxication. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Cash. That's cash. Enter it now.
This report is brought to you by Positive Coaching Alliance. Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
The Good Feet Store, improving people's lives 2 feet at a time.
Follow the Bible in a Year with Jack Graham podcast today. Begin your New Year's resolution with the Bible and see why millions have already started Bible in a Year with Jack Graham.
This podcast was created to help you solidify your faith as you experience the story of the Bible through live action recordings and emotional orchestral music.
Listen to Bible in a Year with Jack Graham on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
So, I'm a dog, and I just got adopted by this new human guy, and I'm starting to wonder how he got along without me. I mean, okay, something as simple as walking around the block. He's got this leash thing, and he puts me on one end and him on the other, and I'm just taking him around. I think he's afraid of getting lost. Without that leash and me guiding him along, I don't think he'd find his way back home. But it's kind of cute.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about over on there. A lot of people chiming in, tuning in, adding their 2 cents, and dropping those likes and reacts, including James Holmes, Ida Beza Gardner, Jerry Hart, Chris Martin, Ion Grimm, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, Monica Cervantes, Amber Banda, and Bernadette Cole. Again, a lot of comments coming in there as well, including Eric von Holstein Rathler saying, in 1956 it took 2 months to elect a Speaker of the House. Not finding immediately any reference to that here, so if you got any more info on that, I'd really like to look at that, but I guess taking a couple of months to even come to a vote would be one thing, but being multiple ballots, particularly in one day, is nigh unprecedented to my understanding of it there. And a lot of different commentary about previous commentators, some that I don't think I can repeat on the air, but you can see for yourself in the comments there. In any case, if you want to add your 2 cents, certainly can that way. But of course, we do have those phone lines open if full up at the moment. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. But getting back to those phone lines here right now, we do have Andrew on the west side with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much, Andrew.
Well, sure thing. What's on your mind? And happy New Year to you as well.
Yes, likewise. My concern, and I thank Greg Abbott for having the National Guard on the border. With what's happening in Juarez, these criminals can transfer over here into the United States. So I'm glad this governor is securing the border in the manner that he has done.
I mean, interesting point to be made in the confluence of events here, of course, referring there to what has happened at the Cerezo Número 3 state prison in Juarez, where dozens were killed or escaped from the prison there, and even more of them. One of the things that I kind of mentioned earlier, but this is one of the interesting things, like there was the discovery of quote-unquote VIP cells. El Paso Matters specifically with some reporting on here that says, quote, included luxuries not normally available to prisoners, as well as a lock safe with over 1.7 million pesos in cash. So you might start thinking like, oh, it's like some Goodfellas stuff where they had, the high suite. I'm going to call this one a little bit different, particularly since it also came up to, in these areas, 84 cell phones, 84 bullet cartridges, 7 long guns, and 4 handguns. So, yeah, this sounds a little bit different than any kind of fiction depiction of it.
Granted, yes. And, like I said, you have several dozen prisoners on the loose. I think it was 24 to be exact. 25 by the latest count, I do believe, of those that actually escaped from it. Apparently corrected. It was originally said 27, but now 25 according to Sandoval Gonzalez. Specifically the General Luis Crescencio Sandoval Gonzalez, quoted here by the El Paso Matters. Well, yeah, don't be surprised if they try to make their way across the border. And like I said, this violence has spilled over in the past. I remember years ago, individual that was on supervision for money laundering. Well, he was kidnapped out of Socorro, Texas, down in our lower valley. Mm-hmm. The Juarez police found him with both his arms missing. Yeah, and I mean the possibility of it there. I mean, given someone like trying to take an opportunity that they might see an opening, I mean, certainly does come to mind when we're talking about this here. So, I mean, again, just feel necessary to mention that for their part, what CVP
has CBP rather has said is that they are aware of the circumstance. Quoting from the article there with our news partners at KFOX 14, CBP was notified Sunday and has been in contact with Mexican authorities. CBP personnel are aware and remain vigilant. Kind of what I expect might be seen is that if there are any crossings that are apprehended, we'll be seeing releases on that in coming days. Usually pretty good about letting people know about significant apprehensions beyond the the kind of the standard what the border crossing traffic is.
Well, let's hope everything works out for the best. I have faith in the rank and file in Border Patrol, but I have no faith in Mayorkas. That guy is really, really useless.
I mean, we've had some more than a couple conversations about what has been put forth, what has been, what policies have or haven't been floated or actually implemented, and I still kind of stand by my analysis that he might be essentially being put forth as simultaneously guinea pig and whipping boy for this administration, frankly.
Very possible, but it's very interesting how these individuals that are put in these cabinet positions, such as Secretary of Homeland Security, like Mayorkas, that have no law enforcement experience whatsoever.
I mean, given whenever you got an agency that is a primary portion of what it does, I mean, sure, there's plenty of departments that deal with primarily, policy or, bureaucracy, but yeah, law enforcement or the capacity to have it should have those in charge of it, some capacity, capability, competency with the subjects. Absolutely.
Well, yes, the way Mayorkas leads, he should be in charge of Health and Human Services rather than DHS, Department of Homeland Security. But anyway, I digress. Oh, and in response to Foolish Frankie, I say he's been dipping too much into his recipe. But anyway, I turn the mic back over to you, Andrew.
Fair enough. Thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Take care.
You as well. I mean, okay, I will say this. I will never fault anyone for being excited, interested, maybe a little bit overzealous when it comes to politics. I've been known to literally play when we get to election season. It's the most wonderful time of the year, even if we are nowhere near the Christmas season, because that's the way I think about it. I know I'm weird, so I'm not going to fault anyone else for having maybe there's more than a little bit of schadenfreude in there as well, but still knowing about what's going on, paying attention. I mean, I think it was de Tocqueville. I know I keep mentioning de Tocqueville as one of the analysis of the, kind of earlier, maybe not earliest, but earlier American experiment in self-governance and being amazed at how people would form these associations, go out and become part of groups here. And I got to say, more than a little bit of that, at least in his reading and analysis and my looking at it, is that it was, a form of entertainment because, I mean, sure, back at that point in time, there wasn't exactly Netflix going on, but I mean, there were other ways, publications, music, things like that coming out, but people's willingness to dive into it because they were also fascinated by it. I find something that made me hopeful at the time and wondering if it's going to be that, if it has to be entertaining for people to actually pay attention to it. I'm hoping not, but polls in our area may actually indicate otherwise. In any case, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, we'll get some more calls on the line. Remember, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. I mean, yeah, there's more to talk about here, and we'll get into it. So if you want to get on the line, that's the number. More comments after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Freeways are staying crash-free so far this afternoon. We got an injury accident, though. Pebble Hills eastbound at Tierra Este. An accident reported eastbound Vista del Sol at Zaragoza. It's stop and go in aircraft in both directions between West Side and the I-10 with 15-minute delays. And North Zaragoza northbound between the Loop and Edgemere, that's a 7-minute backup. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is brought to you by Positive Coaching Alliance.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
Hey folks, Cash Blitz scratch games from the Texas Lottery are here for you right now, and you want to check them out because you could win top prizes from $5,000 all the way up to $1 million. You can enter for a chance to win a VIP trip to an iHeartRadio event or concert. If you're listening to us, you probably might enjoy that, but also win a trip to Austin to play the $10 million Cash Blitz Challenge and attend the iHeart Country Festival. Play today and be sure to visit TexasLottery.com for all the details.
Hey Texas, there are approximately 950,000 individuals in Texas living with a serious mental illness, which is an individual risk factor for severe COVID-19. If you or someone you know is living with a serious mental health condition such as schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, or bipolar disorder, make sure they know where to go this holiday season to stay safe and healthy. Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov to find resources and location information for vaccine providers near you. Stay healthy, Texas.
Asthma symptoms can attack anywhere, like on a city street. Now, you can get fast relief anywhere with new improved Primatene Mist, the only FDA-approved asthma inhaler available over the counter. So whether you need relief of symptoms at the park or at your kitchen table, Primatene Mist starts working quickly, opening up your airways to restore free breathing. For temporary relief of mild symptoms of intermittent asthma, use Primatene Mist and breathe easy again. Available at CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens. Use as directed.
If you're looking to move out of your parents' place, you could really cut expenses by bundling your car and renter's insurance with Progressive, which is good because your little brother has gotten really territorial. You're blood related. You'd think it would be fine to share food in the fridge. I mean, who writes their name on every individually wrapped slice of cheese, Tyler? Still, you've got to admire the commitment. So bundle your renter's and car insurance with Progressive and use the savings to help you move out and have all the cheese you want. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over there, including Graco Manda. Happy New Year, everyone, to you as well, as a lot of other commentary coming in, including from James Radcliffe, Austin Redfern, and James Holmes, among others. Likes and reacts we do appreciate as well. But of course, taking those phone calls as well right now, getting into the new year on the right foot with the discussion of the things that affect us here. So if you want to chime in, of course, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have a call in line right now. We have Jerry in the Northwest there. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Yeah, sure thing.
Happy
What's on
New
your
Year.
mind? Happy New Year to you as well. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm just going to answer Frankie. Frankie, that's what democracy looks like. The Republicans are not like the Democrats. We don't fall in line and goose step all the way behind Nancy Pelosi.
Mm-hmm.
So we have minds of our own. We can think for ourselves. We don't have to be led by somebody that, leads the what do they call that? The jail.
Oh, inmates taking over the jailhouse or something like that?
Well, no.
No.
I'm looking more at not the inmates taking over. I'm looking more at the warden of the jail, Nancy Pelosi.
Okay, I can think of what you're saying there.
Yeah, we have minds of our own. We don't all fall in line behind one individual. That's not what democracy is. So that's what democracy actually looks like. Is we have disagreements even in our own party. and that's the way it's supposed to be set up too.
I mean, I get what you're saying there and why that's a very important concept. I guess the real kind of the historical aspect of it that's getting pointed at is that it hasn't usually been spilling that much into the open, that there's been a lot of backroom deals, behind closed doors, getting and building the consensus, because I'm not saying it's the most important thing. I mean, that's where you start getting into like the majority and minority whips is the ones trying to go around and actually get people, the way it's explained to me, whipped up and excited for things. Whether or not that's actually the way the phrase came about, I'm not qualified to comment on that, but the idea of building consensus as kind of an important part of it, and that if there's this much open revolt, it does kind of make it wonder, like, okay, how is this going to bear it? So, okay, I'll admit I'm fascinated by it. I'll keep my eye on it, even if maybe the schadenfreude is not the part that I'm looking at here.
Well, yeah, we all going to keep our eye on it.
Yeah, sure.
But this is one of them things where, we don't agree even within your own family. Do you 100% agree with everybody that's in your family?
No, but I'll also say I'm not often out there with a bullhorn saying that my cousin is a so-and-so because he said this. Like, let's just say there's some different bounds there.
Well, I'll agree with you on that. There are a lot of discussions over the Thanksgiving, evening meal where people do disagree.
Absolutely.
So it's part of being human.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't see what's wrong with that. The problem I see is on the Democratic side, every one of them voted for Hakeem Jeffries. None of them decided to sway off.
Right.
I guess Hakeem Jeffries is the new leader of the inmates. So he's the new warden. So
yeah, I mean,
what can I say?
Again, there's that whole day of consensus, and I will say this. I mean, there was some discontent even when Nancy Pelosi had her reascension to the Speaker of the House position. And okay, I'm just going to use the language that was used to explain it to me, that particularly in what was that? I can't remember if it was 2016 or 2018. But, actually the last time that O'Rourke was holding the office for the representative for El Paso, he sent out a statement, something along the lines of, as Nancy Pelosi secured the vote, he did not vote for her. And he said that he was disappointed in that vote and that he was thinking it was time for new leadership. The way that was described to me is that in political speak, that's the closest thing to a screaming middle finger that could have been given at that point in time, and why arguably some things like the Kasner Range National Monument didn't end up happening. So there has been discontent and even, dissension previously, but the way that this one is working out, again, ever so slightly different.
Yeah, it is. And speaking of O'Rourke, I understand that he took $1 million from that Jeffrey Freed or whatever his name, the guy that was
FTX,
in the Cayman Islands. He took $1 million of election money, and I'm just wondering, is he going to pay that back?
To my understanding,
stolen money.
Well, to my understanding, and fair is fair, they did receive the donation from it, and then pretty immediately, at least the statement they put out on it, returned it back because it wasn't a solicited donation. They hadn't asked the guy for it, and it just kind of showed up. And so this was during the election. It still, I do believe, said that thanks, but no thanks. We don't really know what you're about, kind of thing, is at least the statement they put out on it.
Yeah. So anyway, that people and families have disagreements.
Yep.
And that's part of the democratic way of doing things. Even though we're a republic, we're a democratic republic. We do select, our leaders.
Yep, that absolutely is.
It works.
Just not usually quite this raucous here. Again, we'll see how this works out here. But do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there, and Happy New Year to you as well.
Sir.
All right. Bye-bye. We got some more calls on the line here as well. If you want to get on the line, of course, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And, we referred to there at the end here, Hakeem Jeffries is the Democratic caucus nominee for the Speaker of the House of the U.S. House of Representatives. Again, don't think it's totally going to come down to him winning. I mean, he still doesn't have, there is no majority yet. So unless there's some significant dissension or screw it, I'm defecting. Okay, I don't think it'll go that far, but closest I think you can end up getting on that one, you'd have to go back to a Newt Gingrich in his time in the chamber. And what was that, like the 90s, more or less? before my time really paying attention to politics, so I apologize for me having to reference materials on this, but him wanting to be forced out, or there potentially being the defection to the Democrat side, at least in the Speaker of the House vote, due to dissatisfaction. So, yeah, it just depends. And I don't see that necessarily happening here. We have time for at least one more call this segment. We do have Raul in the Northeastern line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, I was following politics back in the day when Newt Gingrich, the hypocrite, was impeaching Bill Clinton over, lying about sexual escapade at the White House. And then, but he didn't have any problem with an insurrection on the part of Trump, Very interesting, those hypocrite Republicans. Taxes and government spending affect El Pasoans, as do property taxes, sales taxes, federal income taxes.
Sure.
And, historically, the full fiscal conservative Republicans have run bigger deficits and added more debt to the national debt than the Democrats. And the sad fact is that those who contribute big money to politicians who decide who pays in how many ways, these plutocrats have inordinate power and influence. And they worked it out so that many of the super wealthy people pay less in income taxes than average Americans. They worked it out so that taxes paid on investment income is less than taxes paid from labor. They worked it out so that since the end of World War II and accelerating big time starting with Reagan, the burden of income taxes shifted from the wealthy to the working class. Back when Eisenhower was president, the top marginal income taxes in 1944 peaked at 94%, and that was on taxable incomes over $200,000, which in today's dollars is about $2.5 million. During the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the top federal income tax rate remained high and never dipping below 70%. But then in the 80s, under Reagan and supply-side economics and trickle-down economics, the Republicans dropped the highest rate from 70 to 28%. And then in the 1990s through 2012, during the 1990s, the top rate was about 39%. From 2018 to 2023, the highest income tax rate was lowered by Trump and the Republicans to 37%. So those who contribute big money to the politicians worked it out so that companies can depreciate physical assets, but workers cannot depreciate their physical asset, which is our bodies, which wear down with advancing age, nor can workers deduct the cost of transportation to and from work or lunch while at work. And these folks who contribute big money to politicians decide how our taxes are spent, and these plutocrats have inordinate power and influence. So if they want to tear down City Hall to put a toy, money-losing baseball stadium on it, so be it. And those Fox conservatives, politicians dropped the percentage of income taxes paid by the wealthy. Then they started, with Ronald Reagan, started taxing Social Security, shifting the percentage of taxes paid to the working class. And during that time, the politicians spent ever more money on the cost of the government for the welfare, warfare state that we live in. It's been said that taxes are the price we pay for civilization, and yet most countries with the highest tax rates also have the highest standards of living. And most countries with the lowest tax rates have the lower standards of living. Now, I run a small business and have paid taxes every year since I've been in business. That's over 40 years. But Trump, now that Trump has they've released his income tax, it's been disclosed that Trump, on his federal income tax returns, declared negative incomes for 2015, 2016, 2017, 2020, and that he paid a total of $1,500 in income taxes for the years 2016 and 2017. I paid taxes all those years and a lot more than $1,500. Now, Trump also weaponized the Treasury Department and the IRS by ordering audits of his former FBI directors, James Comey and Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, and got the IRS not to audit him, which is the president, which is the usual practice. And that's because he appointed the Treasury Secretary, swamp creature Steve Mnuchin, formerly from Goldman Sachs, and then the head of the IRS. I can't remember that clown's name. But there you go. You know, the Republican Party has been horrible throughout my lifetime.
I guess I'm not surprised about your end analysis there. I will say I agree with you on 2 points specifically here, that we have seen a change in the way tax rates were done. I mean, if you go back to Eisenhower, we saw particularly some of the top, particularly corporation tax rates being to my understanding, near 90%, the idea that you need to be, if you're just keeping it in the coffers, you need to be spending it and putting it forth there, essentially the economic idea behind it in short. But I will say that I'm going to disagree with you on the one part about the shifting of the burden. It may have been shifted around somewhat in terms of what percentages fall in other parts of it. But I mean, the top tax bracket, those that earn $200,000 or more, according to Pew Research from numbers they have here for specifically from the year for 2015, was that they paid 58.8%. So let's call it 59% of all federal income tax revenue, but only about 4.5% of the returns filed here. So to say that the burden has been entirely shifted doesn't quite bear out in the actual analysis there. Now, the whole pay their fair share, I know that those are rallying cries that get talked about out there, but the way that it actually comes down, the way we look at our spending, I mean, it's a more in-depth conversation that can be put as a, well, we just need to tax them more, because that ends up being a more punitive thing than actually, okay, what do we need? What are our priorities? And frankly, it has been a problem across parties about their criticizing the spending when out of power and then go and rack up the big bucks when they are in power. The whole fiscally restrained part of it always seems to go right out the window anytime someone ends up in power, because then they got the control of the purse strings. And that's why I think that there should probably be that one constitutional amendment that's been suggested. I wouldn't actually say proposed, because it hasn't been that official. I want to say it was Warren Buffett, that anytime there is an unbalance in Congress of more than, I think it was 3.5 or 5%, that any sitting representatives would be ineligible for election. Essentially saying, you better balance this or you're not going to have a job anymore, because, I mean, deficit spending and putting into it. I mean, yeah, there's a whole lot of economic theory that goes into the idea of, well, you got to spend money to make money. You want to push the economy. You can't always pull it along, those kind of things, or vice versa. In any case, the idea of it being we're in power, so we got to do everything we can. That seems to be more and more of the impetus ever since. I guess you can point to Reagan if you want to, but I think also, frankly, Gingrich is another good bellwether for it. So, yeah, I mean, it's a problem. And I do agree with you that it is a problem about the way the spending goes through. But to say that, well, only one party is doing it, and this is not trying to make this into a both sides kind of argument of saying, oh, well, everyone's awful, what are you going to do? But no, seriously, it is a problem that does need to be dealt with. But unfortunately, it's kind of like the Electoral College. People who don't get benefit from it want to get rid of it. Those who do benefit from it want to keep it. And those that don't benefit from it end up being out of power. But if they do end up benefiting from it, they're in power and then they want to keep it. So it's one of those things that will be decried. But unless we start getting into constitutional convention kind of territory talk, I don't see much happening with it, because it's not in their interest to do it, to actually see the change with it there. In any case, got to take that next break right now. If you want to go ahead and call in, again, we'll be doing that through the end of the hour. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with Mark, Talk El Paso, here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. There's a break in the case of a 24-year-old woman who was found stabbed to death in a car in the Kern Place neighborhood of El Paso. Police say the suspect also killed his 79-year-old aunt in northeast El Paso. The stabbing deaths took place over the Christmas weekend. Officers arrested 33-year-old Gabriel Ramirez. Investigators say that Ramirez lived with the aunt that he killed on Christmas Day. Investigators say he was spotted December 26th, washing blood out of a stolen car in Kern Place. He was arrested that day. Police today released details of their investigation. They say he is being held on murder charges. The death toll continues to climb after an attack on a state prison in Ciudad Juarez. Authorities in Mexico say 17 people were killed in a brazen operation that appeared designed to free the leader of a local gang. 25 inmates managed to escape in the attack. Officials say 10 of the dead were prison guards. It's been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Heads up for a stalled truck blocking the left shoulder on Memorial Highway northbound at Vista del Sol. Stay to the right. I-10 eastbound slow from Airway to Yarborough. It's all stop and go with 5-minute delays from an earlier crash. Global Reach southbound from the Spur down to Montana Avenue. That's a half-hour delay for you. Slow traffic on Montana Avenue eastbound from McRae out to Zaragoza. 10-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Lows tonight dropping down into the mid-30s, so it's going to be another cold one for tonight. A little breezy at times. For tomorrow, we'll start to get a little warmer out of the 50s, likely into the lower 60s for your Thursday afternoon. And it will continue that warming trend for your Friday with a high around 66 degrees. A little cooler, though, as we go into the weekend with lower to mid-60s by Saturday and Sunday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Think It Up. Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Struggling with CPAP? Now there's Inspire, the only FDA-approved obstructive sleep apnea treatment that works inside the body to treat the root cause of sleep apnea with just the click of a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Visit inspiresleep.com to learn more.
How pain turned an avid outdoorsman into a frustrated indoorsman. Meet Ron.
I was always active, fishing, swimming, hiking.
Until his flat feet brought it all to a grinding halt.
It is sharp pain shooting up your leg to your back.
And the pain was just the beginning.
When you're hurting, you can't move. So I ended up being a couch potato and my health declined.
Fortunately, Ron had someone in his corner.
My wife said, that's it. I'm going to take you to the Good Feet store,
where he was personally fitted for arch supports.
I took one step, there was no back pain. I took another step, no knee pain. And after my second step, I went into my Good Feet dance.
Today, he's grateful to be back in the great outdoors.
I feel like a new person, thanks to the Good Feet store.
See for yourself how arch supports can help you. Stop by for your free fitting or schedule one at goodfeet.com.
Airway Boulevard at I-10.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org. This report is sponsored by unbound.org.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you very, very much for joining us, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Whichever way works for you, you're able to tune in, see the broadcast, chime in if you so choose to. That's the best place for you to be as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in the borderland, including, of course, those chiming in, or adding those likes and reacts. James Radcliffe, James Holmes, Ida Beza Gardner, Jerry Hart, Chris Martin, Ion Grimm, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, Monica Cervantes, Amber Banda, and Bernadette Banda Cole do appreciate it as we, of course, continue our mission to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland. We've got a few different ones on top of mind today, including the still developing situation involving the prison attack and escape, with dozens dead or escaped from the Cerezo Número 3, a state prison in Juarez, including at least one noted gang leader. The situation, and haven't seen any updates just yet coming out from El Paso City Council on if there actually has been the vote come through it yet, seeing if our news partners there in there are able to give any updates. As far as I'm aware, still in executive session. Hopefully they'll not be there until next show, but you never know. Maybe they got cots back there. Never actually been allowed back there. So this is pure speculation on my part. Anyway, and then, of course, also the kerfuffle of voting and very public drama going on with the Speaker of the House thing. So, yeah, a few things, just small, minor very minor things going on to start off the new year for you. But of course, we got that phone line open as we do our continuing resolution to keep talking about and have you all add your 2 cents. So the number again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have David on the east side of the line with us here right now. David, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me again, Andrew.
Yeah, good thing. What's on your mind?
It's not very relevant with what you were talking about today, but it's very relevant overall. I like to eject into the community because we're El Paso, but we're still Texas.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The gun debate. Now, again, Georgia has just gone permitless carry, just like El Paso, Texas. I mean, same thing. But there's a lot of critics. Are a lot of gun opponents. They're on the prowl again, talking about how this is going to increase crime and the fact that it's just going to make people much easier to obtain a gun. Now that's a myth. That is one of the biggest lies ever perpetrated. The fact that statistics have shown that most people who commit gun crimes are not allowed to own a gun in the first place. And there's various ways to get it. I mean, crack cocaine is against the law, but people still manage to get their hands on it. And another thing, last time when I was on the show, I don't want to mention any names, but trolls are always about in the comment section.
Sure.
And so I don't want to give them much attention, but one thing really hit home was the fact that mass shootings. It was commented upon me that mass shootings have increased since the expiration of the assault weapons ban. Now, I want to remind people that the assault weapons ban was from 1994 until 2004. 1999, Columbine happened. One of the first major school shootings in the country, which shocked the nation. And that went on during the so-called assault weapons ban. So again, what we have is it's culture going in the wrong direction. Now, look, I respect people's rights to not like guns. And let me tell you, if you're not into guns, I don't want to force it upon you if you don't feel safe around.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're better off probably not hurting yourself or hurting others. But I still believe two strong things. Permitless carry or constitutional carry should be all across the country. Now, I definitely respect states' rights to determine their own way, because that's what makes us unique. We are the United States. But there are some things, like, for instance, a driver's license. Every state requires a driver's license. So the Second Amendment should be universal across the United States. And that's not to say that people in California and people in New York should have more trouble trying to defend themselves. Now, this brings up a short story. There was because I've mentioned on the last show, I'm currently serving the United States Army, and there was a news gentleman. I won't give his name, but he was from New York, and he was so thankful that he's in Texas, where he was able to lawfully carry his gun, and it's so easy to find a gun range for less than $20, well, with his military discount, to shoot all he wants. He told me that his family owned a business, and they were robbed a couple of times, so they decided to buy a gun for their protection. But before they bought the gun, they checked into the local laws, and the law says that in New York, for a business, they have to have their gun locked up, and the ammunition has to be separated. So they decided not even to go through it. They said, "What's the point of this? We're going to be breaking the law in order to defend ourselves." So again, the Second Amendment should be universal across the board. And another thing that I advocate that would help our culture go in the right direction is it needs to be taught in school again. Gun safety, with the safety range officers, and just educate everybody about that. Guns aren't just something that you see crazy people in the movies use, criminals on television, and then that's only something the police and military should use in like absolute times of war and chaos. Like it is, if we have the Second Amendment, it should be, we should be using it to the fullest extent. Like, hey, this is your protection, and the police, they're not there to protect you all the time. The police these days, God bless them. They got their hands full. They're putting a lot on the line, but they've become nothing more these days than like literal law enforcers. Now, what I mean by that is we got there's so many crazy laws on the book that most of the time they're out enforcing somebody spitting on the sidewalk or traffic violations, and a lot of times they're so tied up with small, minute things that people personally should worry about, that they don't have time to catch real criminals. And then there's a lot of other factors that come. I'm not going to bore the audiences with where we went wrong and try to say it's a mental health. But the reason I bring all this up is the fact that the Second Amendment has the militia clause in it. The original meaning of that was the fact that it's not just for hunting, it's not just for self-defense, but and we've come a long way from this too. The original meaning of it was the fact that all the deadly weapons the people are supposed to be in charge of all the deadly weapons, and the only time that you have a standing army is the fact that if there's an actual war going on and we're actually attacked. And that's why you always maintained a militia. And the only time the army came together was when the country was invaded, because our founding fathers stated, even though the schools don't want to teach it today, they stated several times that standing armies in times of peace should be avoided because they're dangerous to liberty. And that's what set us apart from all these other nations, was that the people were the army and that the people were in charge. Now, these days, a lot of people try to say, oh, the militia is just nothing more than a National Guard. I serve in the Army. The National Guard they're not the militia. They are nothing more than an off branch of the United States Army, which it still exists today. Now, we shouldn't, I hate saying this because, I serve in the United States Army, but if you look at history and you look at the text of what the talking points were then, it's the fact that our founding fathers, they were against standing armies in times of peace.
No, it's very true, because it wasn't just an army wasn't just a thing intended to fight the enemies of the state. It was often there enforcing the power of the state, even with its borders, which is why, even if, people might think like, well, wait, if they didn't want standing armies, why do we still have, the army itself, Navy, Marines, even in times of peace? Why do they have any staffing, any levels? It's because we have the very more other important policies of posse comitatus about they are not supposed to be operating domestically unless there are emergency declarations, those kind of things. Because in the times of when the founding fathers were writing that, the redcoats, they weren't just go out and defeat enemy nations and then allow civilians to take over. They were also a policing force, and I am definitely cribbing from Battlestar Galactica with this here, but the idea of the way it's been put modernly is that the point of a military is to fight the enemies of the state. The point of a police force is to serve and protect the people. If you have the police become the military, the people tend to become the enemy of the state.
Oh, you couldn't have said it better, Andrew. I was actually getting to that point. Again, the militia used to be like the unofficial police force, because everybody was taught to be trained to arms, and everybody looked after their own community and whatnot. But you can see that it's just it probably take a lot of work and many more years of like undoing the disasters that they've done. We've become dependent on the police because it's just the world is not the same as it once was. And I believe, let's see, I forgot what I had mentioned last time about I made it'll probably come to me once I get off the show, but
it usually happens.
But like I said, long story short, to pretty much wrap all this in a neat little bow, is the fact that people should not be scared of guns, just bad people with guns, because I guarantee you, the good guys will always be there with a gun to protect those who do not like guns. I mean, like it or not, if you're anti-gun, if somebody comes into your house and threatens your life, you're either going to wish you had a gun, or you're going to wish the police officer with a gun will come and save you, or the neighbor down the street that you thought was a crazy gun nut, you'll be wishing that he paid you a visit then.
I mean, yeah, the way it always breaks out in the movies here. I guess the way I do feel about it, particularly when it comes to the education part of it, is that ignorance is never a standpoint in which fear can be dispelled or reasonable decisions can be made. I mean, that has been one of the biggest issues that we deal with, like legislation. I mean, we hate it when our legislators are like, oh, we're going to make, laws on something that we have no idea what we're talking about. The internet is a series of tubes will always live rent-free in my head as a statement there, and it very much applies to the concept of firearms as well. If the only experience people have with it is either seeing it in the hands of authorities, writ large, so to speak, or in movies, then that's going to lead to a skewed interpretation, and that's why I very much do like the Swiss interpretation of how they deal with it. I mean, they have arguably very rigid laws. I mean, they have those kind of storage and separation about it, but the fact is that they're very pervasive in their society, and they have it be where it is, okay, but once we have the occasion to use it, usually on, kind of national holidays and even times in the community, when they go out and do it, they go out and have it because, well, frankly, they understand the importance of having that knowledge about it, because again, ignorance is never a good standpoint for anything to be, even a discussion to happen from. That's why we end up with, well, as you said, idiots in comments that have clearly no idea what they're doing about, but seem aggressively motivated to keep making their ignorance clear.
Well said, Andrew. Well, Andrew, I appreciate you taking my phone call and allowing me to put into the dialogue of El Paso that especially now more than ever, that people they need to learn to protect themselves. Now, I mean, again, permits do not give you training. That's always something not. You have to seek on your own. And remember, and anybody listening, we don't live in California, we don't live in New York, and we don't live in some of these other rigidly anti-gun states.
Illinois comes to mind, yeah.
To purchase a gun, it's going to practice and train at some of these local areas does not cost that much. It's relatively easier than you think, and try to reach out to some of these, especially a good friend of mine, Rick Gutierrez, who's he's an LTC holder, former Border Patrol, and I for $20 you can go somewhere in Fabens, Texas, with him at a range that he has the rights to, and he will show you how to defend yourself lawfully, honorably, and safely.
Well, I'll tell you, I definitely agree with you on the idea of people, even if you do have the license to carry, which if anyone ever feels that they may need the ability to use firearm for its defensive purpose in their lives, get the damn license. Like, that should be step one. But then it's like a driver's license. It confers nothing besides a basic understanding of the platform and none of the advanced uses and reasons for it. So, yeah, training is definitely very critical there. So I do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one and a Happy New Year there.
Thank you, Andrew. Happy New Year, too.
You as well. I think we got time for squeeze in one more quick one very quickly. Do have Stephen on the east side here. Stephen, we got a quick comment we can make here?
Yeah, Andrew, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Yeah, I'll make some quick comments on what some of the callers said. With Frankie, I think, and people talking about Kevin McCarthy and whether he's going to be speaker or not, I don't think it's that big of a deal. They have the House of Representatives, but they don't have the Senate. They don't have the White House. They probably aren't going to be able to move the needle much, no matter who's speaker. But it is. I do think there's a difference between McCarthy and Jim. So I would rather have Jim rather than Kevin. So I think there's a difference there, and I do think that Kevin McCarthy's more like establishment. Maybe he's gotten more influence from lobbyists and those kinds of things, and that goes kind of what Raul was saying. It's like, yeah, there are Fox conservatives, there are rhinos. There are people who pretend like they're going to go in office and cut the deficit and be reasonable, and then the people vote those people in for that purpose, and then they go in there and do something completely different. And as for his tax comments, if you want to raise the tax rates on corporations to 75%, then you're just going to see those companies leave the country, and you aren't going to see any tax money from them because they aren't even going to be here. So the most regressive tax is inflation. So when you deficit spend and you just print money out of nothing, that is really the tax that's going to affect the lower and middle class, the working class. And so spending all these trillions of dollars like the Democrats have done, and Republicans have helped, some of them have, like I mentioned earlier, in some places. But remember, you don't look at who's president. You have to look at who is running the Senate and the Congress. They're the ones who make the bills and everything. So a lot of times what happens is you get a Republican office in the White House, then he gets in his lame duck session. The Democrats are in charge of Congress, and then they cram through all kinds of money and spending, even though the president could potentially veto, but then you have to threaten shutting down the government, and they have a lot of power in that sense of the power of the purse.
I mean, yeah, like you said, it gets messy there real quick. Well, tell you what, we got to end up taking that break so we can get back for the end of the program here. So I'm sure we'll have to talk. There'll be more developing on this, and we'll talk further about it. But I do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there, and Happy New Year to you. But we got to take that last break right now. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso. Tell you what we got coming up for you after this quick break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is slow from the Loop to the Patriot with 5-minute delays. Montana Avenue slowing down. More stop and go right now. Eastbound from McRae out to Zaragoza, it's a 14-minute delay. Zaragoza northbound from the Loop to Montana is a 7-minute backup. South Mesa Hills northbound at Sunland Park, an accident reported and a crash reported with police responding at Dyer northbound at Sean Haggerty. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive Commercial Insurance flexes to fit your business needs. From quick repairs to adjustable coverages and even payment options, Progressive Commercial makes it easy to get what you need. Quote today in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Attend the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, January 7th and 8th at Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Avenue, Las Cruces, New Mexico. See dealers selling the finest in modern guns, antique guns, custom knives, scopes, a huge selection of ammo, reloading supplies, and much more. Buy, sell, and trade at the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, January 7th and 8th at Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Avenue, Las Cruces. Get $2 off admission. Go to azgunradio.com. Parking is free.
Hey, Texas, there are approximately 950,000 individuals in Texas living with a serious mental illness, which is an individual risk factor for severe COVID-19. If you or someone you know is living with a serious mental health condition, such as schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, or bipolar disorder, make sure they know where to go this holiday season to stay safe and healthy. Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov to find resources and location information for vaccine providers near you. Stay healthy, Texas.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. We're super out of time for today, so I want to tell you about what we got coming up for you. We're going to be talking more about the issues that affect us here in the borderland, including having on a Stephanie Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners there at KFOX 14 a little bit later. Also, start off the year, how's that supply chain looking? We'll be talking about that a little bit later in the week. Of course, continuing focus on what the heck is going on with City Council. I don't think that vote has still come out yet, as well as the legislative session. So bunch of stuff we'll keep our eye on. So I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Seriously, these conversations, particularly the ones we actually bring up on air, are very important here. But any way you do it, we appreciate you. So in the meantime, until next time, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is slow from the Loop to the Patriot with 5-minute delays. Montana Avenue slowing down. More stop and go right now. Eastbound from McRae out to Zaragoza, it's a 14-minute delay. Zaragoza northbound from the Loop to Montana is a 7-minute backup. South Mesa Hills northbound at Sunland Park, an accident reported and a crash reported with police responding at Dyer northbound at Sean Haggerty. Carrie Edwards, El Paso
News
traffic.
on the hour and the half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. After 3 rounds of voting, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is failing to secure the speakership as the House adjourned until Wednesday.